The press room was packed. Cameras from all over the country were pointed at the stage, where a podium with the presidential seal gleamed under the bright lights. Journalists whispered among themselves, reviewing notes and adjusting ties as they waited for the arrival of the man who always knew how to command an audience, Donald Trump. When he finally entered, the chatter ceased. Trump walked in with his characteristic confidence, waving to the crowd as if he were at a rally, not a press conference. He stopped behind the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the audience with a smile that seemed to say, "I know something you don't." "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his voice echoing through the room. "Let's get right to the questions. We have a lot to discuss today." Hands shot up immediately, and Trump pointed to a reporter from CNN, who asked about the economy. Next came a question about foreign policy, then another about immigration. The pace was frenetic, but Trump seemed in control, answering with his usual mix of firmness and provocation. Then an anonymous reporter sitting at the back of the room raised his hand. He didn't seem to belong to any major news outlet. He wore a faded suit and held an old tape recorder. Trump hesitated for a moment, but eventually pointed to him. "Mr. Trump," the reporter began, his voice trembling slightly, "a question everyone wants to know. Is Michael Jackson really dead?" The room fell silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. All eyes turned to Trump, waiting for his reaction. He furrowed his brow, as if processing the question, and then let out a low, enigmatic laugh. "Michael Jackson, huh?" he said, leaning forward on the podium. "You know, that's an interesting question. Very interesting." He paused dramatically, looking at the reporter as if gauging whether he could handle the answer. Then he continued, "Not everything is as it seems, my friend. There are secrets the public isn't ready to discover." The room erupted in murmurs. Reporters shouted questions from all sides, but Trump simply raised his hands, as if asking for silence. "I've said what I needed to say," he declared, adjusting his jacket. "Now, if you'll excuse me." He began to walk away from the podium, but stopped for a moment, looking directly at the reporter who had asked the question. "You asked a good question," he said, with a smile that seemed almost complicit. "A very good one." And with that, he left, leaving behind a room in complete chaos. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and the anonymous reporter stood still, clutching his tape recorder, unsure of what had just happened. As the press conference ended and the lights dimmed, one question echoed in everyone's mind. What did Trump mean by that? Trump's statement about Michael Jackson didn't take long to hit Twitter. Within hours, the hashtag #NowMichaelJacksonAlive was trending worldwide. Memes, conspiracy theories, and heated debates dominated timelines. It seemed like everyone had an opinion on the matter. "Trump has finally lost it," tweeted one user. "He's just seeking attention as always." "Or does he know something we don't?" replied another, accompanied by a blurry photo supposedly showing Michael Jackson at a cafe in Argentina. Michael Jackson's fans were divided. Some, thrilled by the possibility that their idol might be alive, shared old videos and messages of hope. Others, however, felt offended. "This is disrespectful to his memory," wrote one fan. "Trump should be ashamed." Meanwhile, mainstream media outlets tried to make sense of the situation. TV and radio programs dedicated entire segments to the topic. Experts were called in to weigh in, but no one could explain Trump's words. "Of course he was joking," said a political analyst on a news program. "Trump loves stirring up controversy. This is just another one of his stunts." "But why Michael Jackson?" asked the host. "Why would he choose this of all things to joke about?" The analyst shrugged. "Who knows? With Trump, you never know." While traditional media tried to downplay the story, the internet was on fire. A mysterious video began circulating, showing someone who looked like Michael Jackson in a remote location. The quality was poor, and the man's face was partially hidden by a hat, but the resemblance was striking. "It's him!" commented one. "User on YouTube. Look at how he moves. Only Michael Jackson dances like that." "Obvious fake," replied another. "That's CGI, people. Wake up." The video was viewed millions of times within hours, and soon even wilder theories emerged. Some claimed Michael Jackson had faked his death to escape fame. Others believed he had been kidnapped and held captive for years. There were even those who said he was, in fact, a secret agent. As the chaos spread, the anonymous reporter who had asked Trump the question watched it all unfold from his small apartment. He wasn't a man of many means, but he had a determination few could understand. As he scrolled through social media, he began jotting down ideas in an old notebook. "If there's even a small chance this is true," he thought, "I need to find out." He decided to investigate the case on his own. After all, he had been the only one brave enough to ask that question. Now it was his responsibility to uncover the truth, but he had no idea what was coming. The reporter's apartment was small and modest, but that night it felt even smaller, cluttered with papers, newspaper clippings, and printed photos of Michael Jackson. The reporter, whose name was Daniel, had spent hours researching everything he could about the king of pop's life and death. He wasn't an expert, but he had sharp instincts and unwavering determination. He started his investigation with the basics: Michael Jackson's death in 2009. Officially, the singer had died from an accidental overdose of propofol, a powerful anesthetic. But Daniel knew that in cases like this, the truth was often more complicated than it seemed. He decided to reach out to people who had been close to Michael in his final years. The first person he interviewed was a former member of Michael's security team, who now worked as a night watchman at a parking lot. The man, who identified himself only as Carlos, agreed to speak with Daniel at a secluded cafe. "Michael was a good person," Carlos said, looking around as if expecting to be overheard. "But he was surrounded by people who only wanted to take advantage of him. If he really died, well, I wouldn't be surprised if someone helped him along." Daniel wrote down every word, feeling he was on the right track. He also spoke with a former backup dancer who had worked with Michael on his final shows. She said that in the weeks leading up to his death, he seemed more anxious than usual. "He talked about wanting to disappear," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "He said he was tired of everything, but I never imagined he'd do something drastic." As Daniel dug deeper, he began to uncover intriguing clues. A leaked document suggested Michael had purchased properties in remote locations, such as a private island in the Caribbean and a farm in New Zealand. Another account mentioned he had hired security experts to create fake identities. He was planning something, Daniel thought as he examined a map with the locations marked. But what? Then he received an anonymous call. The voice on the other end was distorted, as if using a voice changer. "Stop digging too deep," the voice said. "Some truths are dangerous." Daniel tried to respond, but the call dropped. He looked at his phone, feeling a chill run down his spine. Someone was trying to stop him. But why? Determined not to give up, Daniel decided to follow the most promising lead: a supposed sighting of Michael Jackson in a small town in rural Argentina. He booked a last-minute ticket and left the next day. When he arrived, he found the town quiet, almost deserted. He began asking locals if anyone had seen a man who looked like Michael Jackson. Most denied it, but an old bartender eyed him suspiciously. "Are you another one of those reporters?" the man asked, wiping a glass with a dirty rag. Daniel hesitated, but eventually confirmed. The old man sighed and pointed to a dirt road leading to a distant hill. "Up there," he said. "There's an old house. They say a mysterious man lives there. I've never seen him myself, but, well, you can take a look." Daniel thanked him and followed the road, his heart racing with every step. When he finally reached the house, he saw it was abandoned, with broken windows and overgrown weeds. But as he approached, he noticed something strange, fresh footprints in the dirt leading inside. He entered cautiously and found a room that appeared to have been recently occupied. There was an unmade bed, clothes scattered around, and on a table a photo of a young Michael Jackson smiling at the camera. Daniel picked up the photo, feeling a mix of emotions. He was close to discovering the truth, but before he could think of his next move, he heard a noise behind him. He turned, but it was too late. Something heavy hit his head, and he fell to the ground, losing consciousness. While Daniel lay unconscious in the abandoned house in Argentina, the world continued to buzz. Trump's statement about Michael Jackson had become the dominant topic in every media outlet. Social media was ablaze with theories, memes, and heated debates. Even late-night talk shows dedicated entire segments to the topic, joking about the idea that Michael Jackson might still be alive. It was in this climate of chaos that Trump decided to hold another press conference. This time, the announcement was made with just a few hours' notice, further heightening the anticipation. "I'll clear everything up," he tweeted, accompanied by a photo of himself with his arms crossed and an enigmatic smile. The press room was even more crowded than before. Cameras from around the world were pointed at the podium, and reporters whispered among themselves, trying to guess what Trump would say. When he finally entered, the silence was almost palpable. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began in his characteristic tone. "I know many of you are here because of a certain statement I made recently." He paused, looking out at the audience like a master of ceremonies about to reveal a great secret. "Let's get straight to the point," he continued. "Michael Jackson is a legend, an icon, and as everyone knows, I love icons. That's why I decided to create a special project in his honor, a project that will celebrate his music, his dance, and his legacy." The room fell silent, everyone waiting for the revelation. "And to draw attention to this project," he said with a mischievous smile, "I decided to play a little joke, something to get everyone talking." Murmurs began to rise. Reporters exchanged incredulous looks. Had Trump created all this controversy just to promote a project? "So to be clear," he continued, "Michael Jackson is dead. He was a genius, a legend, but unfortunately he is no longer with us, and this project is a way to honor his memory." The room exploded with questions. Reporters shouted, trying to understand if this was the truth or just another layer of the lie. Trump, however, seemed satisfied with the chaos he had created. "Thank you, everyone," he said, beginning to walk away from the podium. "I hope you're as excited about the project as I am." But before he left completely, he stopped and looked directly at the anonymous reporter who had asked the original question. The man was there, in the back row, still recovering from the beating he had taken in Argentina. Trump walked over to him with a smile that seemed almost complicit. "You asked a good question," he whispered, low enough that only the reporter could hear. "A very good one, but maybe you should stop digging too deep. Some truths are dangerous." And with that, he left, leaving the reporter frozen. The press conference ended, but the questions only grew. The media was divided. Some believed Trump's explanation, while others thought he was hiding something bigger. Meanwhile, Daniel, the reporter, returned to his apartment, still shaken. By his experience in Argentina and Trump's words, he knew there was more to the story, something Trump didn't want uncovered. It was then that he received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a blurry photo of a man who looked like Michael Jackson, along with a note that read, "The truth is closer than you think." Daniel stared at the photo, feeling a chill run down his spine. He knew he couldn't stop now. The truth was out there, waiting to be discovered. Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the blurry photo he had received in the anonymous envelope. The man in the image looked like Michael Jackson, but the quality was so poor he couldn't be sure. The note that came with the photo, however, was clear. The truth is closer than you think. He knew he couldn't ignore this clue. Someone was trying to guide him, and he needed to find out who and what they wanted. With a sigh, he picked up the phone and began making calls, trying to trace the envelope's origin. It didn't take long for him to discover it had been sent from a small town in the rural United States, just a few hours away. Daniel didn't think twice. He grabbed his car keys and set off toward the town, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. When he arrived, he found the place as quiet as the town in Argentina. The streets were empty, and the only activity came from a small cafe on the corner. He walked into the cafe and asked the attendant if anyone had sent an envelope recently. The man eyed him suspiciously, but eventually pointed to a house at the end of the street. "There's a strange guy who lives there," he said. "He doesn't talk to anyone, but he's always sending things through the mail." Daniel thanked him and headed to the house. It was an old building with peeling paint and an overgrown yard. He knocked on the door, but there was no answer. After a few minutes, he decided to walk around and peek through the windows. That's when he saw something that took his breath away. Inside the house, sitting in a rocking chair, was a man who looked like Michael Jackson. He was older, with graying hair and a face marked by time, but the resemblance was undeniable. Daniel tapped on the window, and the man turned, looking directly at him. For a moment, the two stood frozen, staring at each other in silence. Then the man gestured for Daniel to come inside. When Daniel opened the door, the man was already standing, waiting for him. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice soft and familiar. "I knew someone would find me eventually." Daniel was speechless. He didn't know if this was real or just a dream. Are you Michael Jackson?" he finally asked, his voice trembling. The man smiled but didn't answer directly. "Some truths are too big to be revealed," he said, "and some people prefer to live in anonymity." Daniel tried to ask more questions, but the man raised his hand, cutting him off. "You already know what you need to know," he said. "Now it's time for you to go." Before Daniel could protest, the man turned and began walking up the stairs, disappearing to the upper floor. Daniel stood there, unsure of what to do. He knew he had an incredible story to tell, but he also knew that, if he did, he could destroy this man's life. In the end, he decided to keep the secret. He returned home and never spoke of what he had seen again. But every now and then, he would look at the blurry photo and wonder if he had done the right thing. Meanwhile, the mystery lived on. Trump never spoke of Michael Jackson again, and the musical project he had mentioned was never released. To the public, the story had ended, but for Daniel, it would always remain alive. Did you like this intriguing story? Leave your like to support the channel and help us create more content like this. If you're not subscribed yet, don't waste any time. Click on the subscribe button and activate the bell to receive notifications whenever we release a new video. We've got lots of incredible stories to come. Comment below. What do you think really happened to Michael Jackson? Your opinion is important to us. And don't forget to share this video with your friends. Who knows, maybe they too have a crazy theory about this mystery. Until the next story.